Topic that I think some people feel safer just keeping quiet. But change starts with conversation, and I believe it's a conversation that should be taken seriously and needs to be had. So where do we go from here? Is it fair to put the weight of ending racism on the white population that was born into these circumstances? So to answer that question, I want to bring to attention a few thoughts and opinions that I have, and Danielle and Allie have input as well. So as you can see, well, you can kind of see, our presentation format followed the structure of an iceberg. I think it sounds a little cliche, but it's very applicable to our conversation. What we see is only a fractional part of what it really is. I think that statement exactly defines the enigma that is racism in today's society and how racism is viewed from the outside looking in. We see the word racism being thrown around in politics, in arguments on social media, in religious discussions, and in professional environments, but hardly ever stop to truly consider the depth of racism and the destruction and hurt it causes in the lives of people affected by it. So going back to this iceberg model, you can see there's like a waterline of visibility, which is where the water is. But our telephone game and our presentation that followed is our way of diving deep under the waterline and bringing the dimensions of diversity and why it is important to the visible surface with you folks. So to answer the question of, is it my job to fix the problem, I have this to say. We repeat what we don't repair. If those that have white privilege and those people of color and minority groups in leadership positions don't use their abilities to right social injustices and improve the lives of our fellow beings, then how will change ever come about? In my opinion, this is my opinion, the passive approach of saying, I'm not racist or I don't see color doesn't fix anything. I believe that actions speak louder than words, and I believe that educating myself and making efforts to be empathetic to groups of people that society has disadvantaged is how change begins. I also don't consider my commitment to change to be as a result of any white guilt or anything like that, but simply my responsibility to be a decent person and leave things a little bit better than I found them.
Just like Liz said, leave things better than what you've come into, or I want to leave them better than how they've been left. We have come a far way from where we were, but I think we're just scratching the surface, and I think it's time to dive deeper into the issues of racism, and especially the people, we're here now. So if we just trickle down, give knowledge and trickle down to the younger generations, then we'll have even better change in the future.
You can say this many different ways as you want to or believe to, but like everyone said, the fact is we want to leave the world better than it came. Teach younger generations. Teach yourselves more a little bit about it if you are uneducated about it, or if you do have questions, because it's okay. It's a topic that's not brought up all the time. It's a topic that is taboo sometimes to people, and it's okay to talk about and ask questions. So we ask you to take your role in this world and help the younger generation, help teach them that it's okay to help people out. That's our jobs. We're here to be privileged, and we're here to help everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any questions?
I don't know how we are on time either, but
Yeah.
if you have anything to add. It's okay if not. But we have some of our books from class up here too, if you want to take a look at them. And you're welcome to take any of the flyers too. But.
Yeah.
I do have a question. Where all are you presenting?
Here. We have, our class, there's a couple different groups, and they're all presenting at area churches. Dr. Lyons, I think, knows more of where they're at, but we were assigned to this church. So, this is where
I
our
was just
group is.
wondering if you were considering presenting to the political establishment.
That's a really good idea. It's something we'd be open to. We'll have to talk about that, but thank you.
I have a question. You're all going to be eligible to vote in the fall election, I think, because of your status or being seen. Do you think that this subject is going to weigh on how people vote this fall? Because, in other words, each candidate says certain things. Maybe one of the candidates wants to build a wall.
Right, yeah.
Or more than one. Now, is that going to influence people's vote?
I think it will influence people's votes for sure. With social media now and everything, you can see how people are reacting to this. And I think people like the idea, but a lot of people are scared of the idea. They're scared that it's going to turn into a lot of violence, and I think that scares a lot of people. But at the same time, it just goes back to what we were saying. You never know what change is going to bring with that.
I can add on to that too. I definitely think it will play a role in the election because I think that people that have the same, narrow-minded view as the person that wants to build the wall are the people that are, really influenced by what's portrayed in the media. The media isn't fact-checked. Anybody that gets in front of a camera, if they say something that causes enough attention, people tend to internalize that it's something that's true, even though it's probably not. And that's kind of what our discussion was about as well. So I think that people that listen to these politicians and internalize that what they're doing to hurt another group is going to benefit themselves, I think that they will take that and kind of run with it and argue that that's the reason they're going to vote for one person over another. So I think that it just really boils down to making sure that our society stays educated and looking beyond what just appears on the TV screen. But I do think that just like in every presidential election, race always seems to make its way as a factor.
The reason I bring that up, a lot of the people here know I was in the amusement business for years. And on the West Coast, they bring a lot of Mexicans into this country to do work. In the San Joaquin Valley, picking fruits and vegetables, in the carnival business to run the rides, things like that.
Farmers, yeah,
and those Mexican workers are here on legal visa programs, not illegals. And they work hard and they can pass a drug test any hour of the day. And that makes a difference in the workplace. And they pay taxes, Social Security taxes that they'll never collect because they're not American citizens, see. But you're benefiting from that if you're getting Social Security. And so there's the stereotype, all Mexicans are bad in this. No, you don't eat fruit and vegetables in the winter here in Alliance, Ohio without those people because Americans won't work that hard, most of them, not all, but most. And there's just an example, see. The subject.
That's a good point too. And in our class, we talked about immigrant farmers and things like that. And I've talked about it in another class that I have this semester as well. And I didn't know anything about that until I, took the time to take the class and get educated about it. So I think we've talked about this a lot in our Capstone class that education is liberation, if I could say that. It helps. When you learn about people that you don't know anything about, it really lets you be empathetic to them and step into their shoes and see that, what is portrayed is often not truth.
I have a question. From each of you, what was the thing that surprised you the most that you encountered? I'm sure it'd be different for each of you.
I would say, and I've said this before, that the most surprising thing, and I don't know how to put this, but I guess the most surprising thing to me was that, like, the history lesson that I kind of talked about is that racism is way beyond what has happened in the United States. It's centuries of people being discriminated against for whatever reason, either through interpretation of a religious teaching or through a scientific fact that is not science. I think that the most just eye-opening thing that I learned, maybe not surprising, but the eye-opening thing that I learned is that this discrimination and this inability to be empathetic to populations has stemmed way beyond what's happened, just in the recent 200 years or so in the United States.
Mine was really we each took sections that we were really passionate about, and mine was the genetics because that kind of shows, okay, here are the cold hard facts, here are what we've learned here's what history shows us, but we don't look at that today. No one thinks about that. No one thinks where we came from and where our ancestors are from. We just think about what somebody's black and somebody's white. And that is one of the most things I was most interested in, because how I'm speaking to a bunch of people that are my parents and grandparents' age, and how can I get across to them like something that we're all the same, and going back to the history and just looking at the cold hard facts is really what was most eye-opening to me, and I really enjoyed learning about that. And when you think back at it, I touch very on the baseline of it, just kind of like our demonstration. You know, there's so much more to it, and I loved it. And the thing with the story as well, thinking about how that little girl felt and how that mother must have felt, it's heartbreaking, and it just makes me want to help more and do more and put myself out there and make sure others are more educated about it. That was my most interesting factor for sure.
Yeah, I would have to say, before we even started working on this demonstration, just sitting in class, and it just, I've known about white privilege, but I never knew so much about it, and I was shocked. I was like, wow, it really is that, it's a big topic, and not a lot of people, I mean, just the fact that, you know, I'm a young white female, and I never noticed my white privilege before, or what it really entailed, so I was really shocked when I first learned about it. Oh. I just forget. I'm sorry. Do I need to repeat it? Okay.
Don't use it.
I always forget.
I know, I forgot to start with that.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Yes.
I believe that every problem has a root, and I think, which is very concerning to me, quite frankly, is the disruption and the breakup of the family, the country, with the divorce rate at 60%, and the frustration within families. It concerns me, and I guess I ask you the question, how do you feel that you're going to be able to overcome this problem when there, and believe me, I believe what you're saying so many times over, because I see those things happening, and it really bothers me. But how do you feel that with all of these other problems, dysfunctional families and the frustrations with government, with families, with churches and everything else, how are we going to address this? It seems like that would almost fall below a priority.
No, I completely agree. There's so many issues out in this world that people are focused on. There's so many things we do have to worry about. And that's okay, there's always going to be something, but it's up to us and our priorities, I think. It's where you want to lie in your priority list, and I think diversity should be closer to the top just because we are exposed to that every day in this world. It's not something that just comes across once in a while. And like you said, there's so many other issues in the world that we're focusing on right now, and there's so many problems, but it's just something as little as always making something an educational purpose, where if you see something and maybe with a broken family, just always trying to be a positive influence, is it, okay, well, this is an example, did you see that man, and just kind of just explaining the background of it and saying that it's okay, they're not, no one's different, we're all the same again, and again, making it a priority and making it a priority in everybody's life and a learning experience where this is okay to learn about, and we see it every day, like I said. So just kind of like stopping and saying, okay, well, this is this, and here, let me teach you about it. Does that answer your question a little bit?
It does, but that is rational thinking.
So I have something to add to that too, and I do agree with what you're saying. I think that, you know, if it came down to it, putting food on the table is maybe a little bit more important than trying to fight the world's, you know, racist problem. But you know, like I said before, I want to be a school psychologist, so my focus is, you know, with children, and I really like working with kids, making sure that they can thrive and survive in the school system setting. And when we did this presentation, you know, it is, I mean, that's like a big iceberg. I mean, it is a big, you know, it's a big problem, but when I think of it, or think that the impact that I can have on it when trying to combat all the other, issues that people that are discriminated against or don't have access to can go through. And I think how I can influence a child's life, if I can instill in a person of color or a child that maybe is impoverished or can't afford to eat, things like that, if I can help them in the school system feel successful and feel that they can be good at something, that increases their self-esteem. And one thing that I learned in another class of mine is factors of resiliency and how to teach kids coping skills to survive in their environment and continue to be successful and graduate school and go on to get an education and things like that will help them be successful in society. And I think that the impact that I can have is teaching a child to really believe in their ability and think higher of themselves than what their surroundings might tell them. So I guess that's just my thought of how I can try and help them.
Yes. I have two great nieces who are biracial, and they left a church in Georgia because they were really mistreated. I just texted my sister to see if it was a white or black church, and it was really a mixed church. And it happened several years ago, so she probably would have been about 7. And her comment, my little niece's comment to the people was, "I'm a nice little girl." But she was, and it was both black and white. So racist works on both sides.
Yeah, it does.
And it affects the children. And she's blonde hair and blue eyes, and her sister is more the African American, but they're still wonderful little girls, and I love them.
So I think that just shows that the importance of taking the time to get to know someone, and
They go to a different church now.
do they? Oh, that's good. Go ahead.
I want to ask, ask your opinion about whether you think it really is a choice of priorities if you're talking just about your personal interactions. If we're talking about trying to make institutional solutions, yes, I realize we have to prioritize. But if just a question of how am I going to treat other people, or what am I going to do when I interact with other people, is it really a choice? Well, I can only focus on this and I can't focus on that. Another comment I just want to make is we've sort of interpreted diversity as racial diversity, but there are other forms of diversity. There's gender diversity. We didn't even talk about sexism, probably, which more than 50% of the people in the world are disadvantaged because they happen to be female. So there are lots of other things. So I guess I would, it's sort of I posed it as a question, but really, can't we just actually, the more things we're aware of, the more things we can address in our personal lives. And we don't have to choose and say, I'm only going to focus on these.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think that changing your mindset or the way that you go about your day, whether it's in the workplace or people that you interact with, if you start your day or you carry through it, your actions with intent of trying to improve the life of somebody else, even if it's just smiling at them in a grocery store or making institutional changes like you talked about, like doing more big picture things. I think that if you can change the way that you look at things, I think that your actions will exemplify that, and you can address more issues than just one at a time.
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment, piggyback on what Victor said here too. And John was mentioning, it seems to me that as we work on issues and as we pay attention to what we do personally, that it makes the whole better, but it also then it affects those families that are struggling. It affects, how people who can't get jobs, if they're able to get jobs, then they would be able to have more secure families and things like that. So the one does affect the other. So it's not like making a choice about this or that. It's putting it all together because it all impacts the other. And so, yeah, I like your point about the diversity of gender being a diversity. I think in a lot of ways, I think gender discrimination is even worse than racial in many areas.
Yeah.
So.
No, we,
Diversity is such a broad topic. You could, like we say, we can get into anything about this. It's something that we really like that we talked about. But like you guys said, diversity is everything. It's your race, it's your sex, it's your hair color, it's anything. So just remembering that, how important it is, and again, everyone's saying, thing we've learned since, we were in kindergarten is, it doesn't matter who we are or what we are. Diversity is also with religion. Everyone is equal in a way that some people can't see beyond the eye. And that's extremely important to remember when you're looking at diversity in any way. Again, if it is race, sex, religion, age. Any other questions? Yes.
One thing that I found especially prevalent during the political scene today is that people who with unpopular views or what we think are incorrect views have a voice now. And I think for kids, how do you teach them that not every voice should be listened to? And because if you go out on the internet, there's not anything they can do to step up for it for a person of color. They can join the fray, but what can they do? They can do something personally, but it's just overwhelming, I think.
I think it's all about doing further research, because there are people who have opinions who maybe their opinions are their opinions, but maybe they're not always correct in certain ways that are appropriate. And I think for me, I can't listen to what one thing that I read, because that would just make me a fact in society saying, I read something, so I'm going to go tell everybody else about that, because I don't know where that fact came from. I don't know if it's true. I don't even know if I agree with that fact. I have to do my research and figure out, okay, well, this is what I heard, but that could be wrong, because someone could have just repeated what somebody else has said. And like earlier, we played that game of telephone. It can come out in different ways that, might not have meant to come out. So it's all about doing further research and learning more about, in this example, the political examples and, what they say and who believes in what.
I think when you're talking about kids, I have little siblings. So we've tried, to teach them, no, you can't do those things, or that's not right. You can't, everyone else is doing it. Can't you? And they'll post a video and show me this video of someone doing this. It's not wrong, or being mean to someone. It's like, no, just because everyone else is doing it doesn't mean you should do it. So I I completely understand what you're saying. It's really, nowadays, extremely hard with social media. Social media is taking over everything, and the young minds, it's just completely, they're synced to it. So it's very hard, but I think as parents and grandparents, tell your opinion. They're not going to want to listen, but they just try your hardest to influence them, and hopefully that your words stick.
I think that also when it comes to kids or just young minds in general, or really anyone I think this could apply to, but so things that I've heard about with politics and things like that is that this group of people is awful, or this policy is bad, or this and that, but I've had experiences in my life, whether it be from volunteering or internship experiences, or just any other activities, that when I hear like the stereotype or something negative about someone, in my mind I think, well no, like I know someone like that, and they're not like that, so this whole population is not bad, So I think when it comes to teaching kids, because there are just so many forms of words and media that just portray something awful sometimes, I think that if you can take like your kids or grandkids or whoever it may be, and take them to volunteer, or take them to see these populations, take them to, a soup kitchen, or just something like that that opens their eyes to what it is. And when they hear these negative things, in their mind they'll think, well, no, like I know someone like that, and they can relate their experiences and decide for themselves that what they're hearing is just not true,
Just turn off the button is-
Thank you. But you go ahead and have it back on.
I want to thank you as a professor for being patient, and I want to thank my students for their wonderful, wonderful job. This is the first time we've done this. Dr. Haddix has a class, Negotiating Diversity. I have my class, and we all have to have a project where they will go out to the community and offer their information to the community. You've been very patient, and I really want to thank you all for that. In regard to what we do in the future, what we're doing now is one of the ways that we can have an impact. The problem may seem insurmountable, but we worship a man who came here a long time ago. And I'm reading Matthew chapter 5, and I'm reading the Beatitudes. And one of the first things that Jesus does when he comes, he talks to those who are disinherited. He talks to those who feel they have no hope. And so I think our hope is in the one which we worship and celebrate. And also, when you look at this country, we have probably come a long way. Remember in the 50s and 60s, how we used to have trash everywhere, right? Streets were not clean, right? And what do we have now? I mean, so there isn't. And a lot of it starts with just these young people right here.
That's right.
They're it. So it may seem unsurmountable. It may seem we have so many broken families and stuff, but there's hope. And my hope is the one who gave his life. And the fact that others believe in him, that's where my hope is. But again, I want to thank you all. A wonderful job. And I'm going to ask the pastor to come up here to have some closing words.
Thank you, Dr. Lyons. I'm just thrilled, and I speak on behalf of Christ United Methodist Church. We are thrilled to have you. We're thrilled to have your students here. Wonderful presentation. It just does my heart good to see what's coming from the University of Mount Union, what's coming our young people. I just can't say enough to praise you. And I'm hoping that everyone, can we put our hands together and thank these ladies? And yeah, I encourage you, take this show on the road if you can. Yeah, there needs to be other folks hearing and at least having the conversation. So I'm going to give this back to you, Dr. Lyons, so you can pray us out.
I think I like his style.
When I decided to take on this project, I thought it would be good for the churches to kind of hear what's coming out of our schools, out of our college, university. And so this is one of the places I thought was here. And so it's here. But I want to encourage you, if you want them to come back, they will come back. They have a lot more information. They really do. They write a 25-page paper. Seriously. 25-page paper, weekly journals, a site visit. All of that stuff. Plus the hours and hours in putting it together. So it wasn't like one shop deal. Let us pray. Oh, right before that, I want to say just a shout out to Liz's mother, who's in the back. Turn the camera there.
Good wave.
Okay.